Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mindset Teaching Outside the Box. We are your hosts, Jillian Willie
and Eileen Edwards.
And today we have a special guest, Ignazio Dentici. Hope I said that right. Eileen, I'm going to pass it over to you for an introduction.
Sure. We're excited to welcome Ignazio, founder of Human Spiritual Evolution. He is a qualified level 2 quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, also a certified guide for MPA deep meditation, which we'll have to talk more about, and self-knowledge school, a recognized advanced yoga practices teacher and spiritual mentor. So we've mentioned his work before on previous episodes around the idea of deep meditation, brain waves we've talked about, and even shared one of his meditations that's available on the Insight Timer app. You can also find him in virtual reality, offering meditation sessions as one of Evolver's session leaders. So Ignazio, could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. And yeah, you pronounce the name perfectly. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. Thank you for that introduction. Well, first of all, yeah, my name is Ignazio, and I live somewhere in the countryside in England, outside of London, in between London and Oxford. And I'm originally from Italy, but I've been in England for 12 years. Also a tie with the US because my mom is from Chicago, so I've been there a lot and went to school there for a year, so I consider it as one of my other homes for sure. Yeah, and I came over to England as basically working as a chemical engineer in water purification technology and R&D, so a very scientific and technical job. But I was already practicing meditation and loved meditation and teaching it as well. And then a few years ago, I just decided to, leave that job and just devote myself completely to meditation and hypnosis and spiritual work. So yeah, it's been a few years and I love it now. Absolutely.
Sounds wonderful. I know I have participated in many of your meditations and find them to be almost like so deep that like they're life-changing almost.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's very beautiful.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to hit one of those up for sure. There are a lot of things that Eileen shared that you do, which is phenomenal. And one of the things that stood out to me was she said that you do quantum healing meditation. And I was wondering what exactly, I mean, I can get an idea. Obviously, it's healing, but that really intrigued me. Can you tell us more about what that is?
Sure. So it's called the quantum healing hypnosis.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Rather than meditation. And it's a beautiful technique that was developed by a lady called Dolores Cannon. She was a hypnotherapist and she worked with hypnosis for 40 years. And she was a pioneer in her field, wrote, 20 books. And essentially it's a technique in which we look at the life of a person in its entirety. So a person that comes for quantum healing hypnosis will bring the most important questions in their life, and they'll make a list. And then when we meet, we'll talk about their entire life from when they were born until now and go through the questions. And that prepares us to dive into this deep state of hypnosis, probably the deepest you can get. And over there, we access visions from the higher self and the subconscious, visions that tell a story and at the same time answer some of the questions that the person brought. And once we explore those visions, then we take a step deeper and we go to the higher self region, which is like this super consciousness that is hiding underneath in the subconscious, but that knows everything about ourselves and our soul. If we have a dream and we may not understand what the dream means, in reality, there's a part of ourselves that has assembled that dream and that has chosen every single symbol, knows what everything means, what the message is, why it needs to send us the message. So in this hypnosis, we go there to that holder of knowledge, and we find the answers to the questions in the healing that is usually associated to something that the person doesn't quite understand about their life, like a message not heard. And so it's quantum because it's really a leap in understanding and healing that happens all at once. So we take like 5-6 hours with one person to do that.
Wow, that's fascinating. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
And this process, I know that I had taken one of your courses in VR, and we had talked about like walking through like the dream state.
Yes.
And so I know I personally had difficulties with that process, which I'm still working on. But is that similar in the sense that we try to get ourselves into like a deep state of relaxation and then be able to remember things that maybe we would set ourselves up to remember things that maybe we wouldn't normally remember when we wake up?
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. The thing is that the subconscious is always communicating to our conscious mind in one way or another. And dreams are one way for the subconscious to communicate. And another way are basically almost like requested visions that we can ask to the subconscious. So we can ask it to come in form of a dream, and we've done techniques like that. But we can also ask it to come in form almost of a meditation, like a vision in a meditation. But the process of hypnosis helps like anchor that vision, because you're speaking with somebody and you're telling them what you see. And the person, in this case me, asks then another question. It keeps you in the vision long enough to start to explore it without it being something that passes by maybe in a meditation, or that you have a dream and you don't remember quite bits of it. Like this, it's like very directed and quite clear as well.
That's what I'm thinking, because I know a reason why I struggled was not being able to visualize things. And I think I was kind of stuck in that. I did experience some of the stuff that you were talking through. And this wasn't through hypnosis. This was through a course he was doing on enlightenment. Yes. And I'm trying to remember exactly what that course was called. But I remember saying that like I don't remember dreams. Like that was something that like I never had experienced. And we had like a homework assignment to try and set ourselves up for like future sleep sessions. And I hadn't had luck with that until recently, and this is months past the course has ended. Suddenly, just every now and then, like a piece of a dream will be there when I wake up, but I'm like, I have no idea what that means or what that's trying to tell me. It makes no sense. And I try and sit with it for a little while, and then I just end up letting it go because I'm like, I have no idea. I mean, like you said in the class, like there's something that's there. My conscious mind is just not connecting to what it is.
Yeah, so that's another aspect of hypnosis, that the first 20 minutes, really what we're doing is we're slowly putting the conscious mind on the side, and it's a very slow, patient work. And then through the questions in the process, always keeping it on the side so that you have a flow. Because if to be like very direct, right, in this kind of work, most of the time the answer I don't know doesn't exist. so it's almost like you should kind of force yourself to come up with an answer. Okay, I don't know, but if I did know, what could it be? And then imagine that you need to write a page of a story, and you got to be creative because the teacher assigned it to you. And so, and I always give the same example, if my daughter's playing with Ken and Barbie or dolls, and one asks to another, where did you come from? The doll's always going to have an answer in that playful creative flow. So one of the tricks is that you need to like play, because what you think might be irrelevant when you play, actually you're doing it in a certain way because you're guided from your subconscious, and it makes perfect sense that you do it that way. So if you engage in a dialogue with a part of yourself, including a dream, and you give yourself the freedom to play with it the same way a kid would play with two dolls, then the dream can speak to you and it will say something. And in time, you learn to trust it, because you start to see, okay, is this true? Let me try in my life to follow what it say. Because then you got to actually, it's difficult to blindly trust dreams if you haven't developed a relationship with them.
My mind is kind of blown right now. I never thought about it like that. Now my wheels are spinning. What about you, Jillian?
Yeah, well, yes, me too. I have always remembered my dreams, not every single night, but I have my whole life been able to pretty much recall them. But more recently, since my spiritual journey began and I learned that, dreams are your inner being, communicating with you, I Google it. Like I Google, what does this mean if it shows up? But then it's like there's a million different, things that could be. So then I'm like, well, this isn't really helpful. So that is insanely helpful. And I know like with kids, let them play, but then I never thought about doing it myself in that way. So yeah, I'm very excited to try this.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm having trouble putting it into words. Like I never thought of doing that, but it makes total sense because I talk about, letting things be or letting things, sitting in silence when you've forgotten something, sitting in silence and just letting it come to you as, inspiration, like it'll just come. So it makes total sense to kind of just go with it, but I'd never thought of doing.
And also, a few symbols in dreams can be universal, but most symbols are not. And because, imagine if you're a fisherman and you dream of a fish, it's going to be different from if you're somebody that lives in the mountain and doesn't even see fish, or if you, I don't know, whatever is your life, if you dream of a flower and you're working in botanics, it's like it's different. So, or if you have a phobia and you dream of something, so the real meaning, we all know. We need to start from that kind of knowledge. We know it because we created it. Even if there's a higher force that does it through us, it does it with us. So we've created that dream, so we know. So if we know, what is it? And give us our permission even to make mistakes. We don't have to get it right. We can get it wrong, but give permission to the child in you to play with it and say.
Wow.
That's a game changer. That makes so much sense though, when you think about it. I mean, something that we've talked about on our podcasts before is that what you believe to be true is true for you. So if you believe that you will understand what your dreams mean, then it makes sense that even if you don't get it right, like you said, you will eventually figure it out because that's what your belief is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you get to that deep kind of relaxation state?
Mm. Well, there is many techniques and many ways of doing it. And so it's a question also of choosing the way that suits you best. And obviously doing it through hypnosis, you're guided in that way. You kind of follow a process and that's easier. But if you do it by yourself, you basically just need to take the time to do it. And in the deep relaxation that I also teach in VR, we go through the body and the emotions and the mind, and we calm each of those layers down and we relax them. So, but as long as you have some kind of technique in the beginning to help you, and then you can just um, do it by yourself. But for example, let me give you an example. In hypnosis, we use images in order to help induce that state. Because one of the things that happens when you start to fall asleep is that your mind flashes images and flashes sounds, almost like in that in-between state when you're falling, asleep. Your thinking becomes weird. You see a flash of something, and so we kind of almost go through a few images, a few sounds in order to create that state. And then it's like a guided relaxation. There's a lot of tricks and a lot of ways, but
I know the one that we shared in our group was your descent to zero meditation. And if I
yes.
remember correctly, I haven't done it in a little bit. If I remember correctly, there was like, well, with descent, think of that word, but like there was like levels of it, of
Yeah.
kind of like letting different pieces
Yes.
go.
Yes. And this descent to zero was created by a Jesuit priest called Father Ballester, who also created the MPA method. And it kind of comes from the concept that meditation can be many things for many people, and there's so many techniques. But one way of thinking of meditation is to stay in a state of pure consciousness, and we can imagine almost consciousness like attention. So I can bring the attention to my body, I can bring the attention to my emotions, I can bring the attention to my mind, or I can bring the attention to the attention itself, to the fact that I am aware. Now, if I can do that after having shut down the body, the emotions, and the mind, then I can reside more in a state of pure consciousness, where there is no body, there's no mind, there's no emotions, and there's pure silence. So that technique was developed in order to do deep relaxation, but to prepare for the step of deeper consciousness.
Mhm. Wow. That's amazing. Just to think about.
Sorry, I'm like trying to process it all at the same time. I know that I'm trying to enjoy it as a listener, not just the person who's trying to get information for other people. So in previous episodes, Jillian, you had mentioned something about the different brain wavelengths as it, I'm trying to remember what it was relating to. As it related to, it's left my head at the moment.
Yeah, I think we were talking about like manifesting and changing programs and stuff. So
Oh.
which states were the best to do, those different things. Yeah, that this line of questioning was one of mine too. So go ahead.
So I was thinking about that specifically when I knew that you were coming, Ignazio, because I had taken that course with you and we had gone through the different levels, like the alpha brain waves, the beta brain waves, delta, theta. And so I was wondering if you could share any more information about those in your experience, the different states, if you could kind of explain them a little bit.
Sure, of course. So we could use the brain waves, but I like to describe the states more for themselves, the way the experience is. So, well, there's the experience of when our mind is very active and we're involved with the senses, and we're kind of really in the 3D world made up of our senses and the logic of going from one place to another and doing this and doing that. And so that is a certain state of mind and of consciousness. And I think that's usually a beta waves, but sometimes I make mistakes with those. And then you have a slowing down um, of the mind, and of going into a more like aware and present state. And so that becomes really a shift from being more automatic to being more present. And as we do that, the brain waves slow down, and we can move, when we're then going into meditation in the beginning, or starting to go to relax, that's kind of an alpha state. And then you're kind of then moving down, and the alpha state is kind of getting you into sleep, or also into the REM phase. And the deeper states of usually of hypnosis are like theta. So because that you need to be in a state where there is mental activity, even the capability to respond to answers. It can be very, very deep, and I'm sure there's exceptions, because we can't really standardize people, so people might be able to function. But it's a very like it kind of tells a story also of meditation, because meditation is similar to all these states but with awareness. So I can be, let's say, not consciously aware and just go through my day and then fall asleep, and go through night, have dreams, wake up, and or I can be aware of everything and see it happening and be very present to it. And so as I do that, it starts to kind of create almost another dimension of living. In fact, for example, meditation, deep meditation, is like deep sleep, but you're aware of it. So it's not really a question of what the brain waves are doing. It's like that you're aware of being in a state of no mental activity. And it's something very magical, because we all sleep, and that does regenerate, but it doesn't lead to enlightenment the way meditation does. So that same state, but where you retain awareness, becomes something different, that has a different effect of order on the mind, on the body, on the emotions. So that state is, the state. I'm not sure if it's a, gamma state, waves, but the slower waves. So we need a little bit of everything, really. I think it's a question of finding the balance, and the balance changes throughout life. Even when you meditate, some phases of your life you might need loads of meditation. You might need to nurture loads with these deeper states, and other parts of life you might need a little bit, because you're already more in balance, or it depends what you need to do.
How would somebody know, like somebody who's new to all of this? I don't know if you can answer this question, but someone who's new to all of this and they're trying to figure out what they need, would you recommend they just start small, like 10 minutes of meditation a day, or how do they know, like, what they need?
So I would recommend for anybody starting to, first of all, find like a technique. And it could be the first one you find, or you might need to look a couple times, 2 or 3, and something that is like a proper recognized central meditation technique, because there's so many exercises that you can do that are beautiful with the mind, but they're not really central processes, central practices. So do a little bit of research, find one, and then start a little bit a day. Whatever, well, a little bit a day is not even true. It's like whatever you feel is your balance, because you might be hungry for meditation and you might want to meditate 2-3 hours a day, and it might be right for you. But if you're starting and you're not sure and you don't have that, calling, then even 15, 20 minutes a day is very, very good. 5 minutes is a bare minimum to start. It's okay, good, but probably not for long. You would need to do a bit more than 5 minutes normally in the beginning.
Yeah, when I started, the only reason why I started was because I could commit to 10 minutes a day. That's how I started. But once I had my 10 minutes a day and I realized how much it helped me, I was able to do 2 10-minute sessions a day. And now I meditate 3 times a day, and one of those sessions is usually an hour. And I don't feel I feel the positive effects of it, but I don't feel the overwhelm of, oh my gosh, I don't have time to do it.
Beautiful.
Which is what I had felt when I first was starting.
Beautiful. See, I started the opposite. Now I don't meditate as much as you normally. It depends because I'm doing so much of this guiding work that it kind of it has a similar effect. It's not the same as, but when I started like from one day to another, like 3 weeks of 24/7 just meditation all the time. And then from there for years, it was like hours and hours and hours of meditation, because my friend had their spiritual awakening at the same time. So we were, 5, 6, 22-year-olds that were all in love with meditation and couldn't get enough of it. And so we would meet, and first we'd meditate 3 times, and then we'd go out. And so in retreat after retreat. So that was like a phase of my life where I meditated a lot, and I needed it, So, but anybody can start in any way and move up and down, as long as you feel that it's balanced for you and you're honest and you're doing what you feel is right for you. You will know if it's 10 minutes or an hour. Everybody knows, everybody has their own answers more than anybody else could ever tell them from the outside.
Yeah, we have to trust ourselves.
Yeah.
How would you recommend teachers or parents who want to help their students or their children start with mindfulness and meditation? Where or how would you recommend that they start this with kids?
Sure. So first of all, obviously the first start is that you do it yourself, and that your children become accustomed to maybe seeing you meditate sometime, knowing a little bit what it is and having an interest. And the ideal case is that they have an interest in it, and they need to have at least a little bit in order to start. Otherwise, I'm not sure. It depends. But then definitely, depending on the age, because if they're 6 or 7, it's one thing. If they're 12 or 13, it's completely different. But make it light, make it a little bit fun, make it a little bit of a ritual, a fun thing. And better less than more. It's better that the child has a good experience and wants more than it's been too much, you're too long. So I think that's a good way. Like my daughter, for example, she's 8 and she's just started to ask me to help her with meditation. And basically I only do it if she asks me, and she needs to almost not beg me, because I'm always here, and she can see that I meditate and that people come here and meditate, and so she knows it's amazing, and I want it to be her choice. So we just started to do a little bit with the breath. So for her it was like taking a few deep breaths and then observing the breath, and then also moving the energy in the body as well.
That makes sense. Yeah, because you don't want to force them into it.
No.
Expose them to it and let them come to you.
Yeah.
And I like that you mentioned like simple. Starting with just the following of the breath and, focusing on the energy in their body. I think that is 2 things that can be very beneficial, especially in today's world where kids are experiencing so much anxiety and stress that shouldn't be
No.
in their experience. But yes, I like that. Simple. I had a question and it just like left my head. Oh my goodness.
I have another one if you want
Go
to
ahead.
think about it.
Yeah.
So as Eileen mentioned, we did kind of talk about this in another episode, but it's been a while and you're more of an expert than I am. So which state or which way of being would be the ideal to work on creating what you want visually, like manifesting or, reprogramming?
So the first thing is that manifestation is a little bit of a tricky thing, because from a spiritual point of view, acceptance takes precedence to anything else. So the first question when I want to manifestate something is it because I don't or can't accept what is currently in me and around me, is I think the first question. And then the second thing is that manifestation is a consequence of you transforming yourself. And you don't attract what you want or what you imagine, you attract who you are and how you vibrate. So it is about creating within you that aspect that you want to be attracting outside. And so basically being as creative as you can to think in that way, to embody that. But again, being careful that it's not like a cop out of not acceptance, because then it's not going to work. And then probably it's not even what you really deserve, like what is right for you to have. But if from a more technique point of view, you would do things like that probably between the alpha and theta state. So again, you would relax to a point where you're almost like dozing off, but you're still aware. And over there, essentially, you're almost practicing in your mind what you will then be practicing, outside. So it's a different way of looking at it. You can also imagine what is that you want to attract it. But if you don't have the resonance in you to attract it and to hold it, there's a good friend of mine that is a meditation teacher, and he gives an example which I really loved, which was like with water. And he says, imagine that you are a swamp, okay? And you want to attract the birds and the beautiful animals that are near the source of the water, the spring of the water up in the high mountains. Even if you grab a deer and you bring it there and you grab a couple of those birds, they won't stay because you're a swamp. And if you want to attract, the beautiful animals that are over there and they're drinking and singing, you've got to become like a spring coming out in the mountain of the water. Excuse my English, because it's still not my first language. So the attracting is a consequence of the changing of our heart, our mind, and our frequencies. And really, to do that, we just need to do it. But the imagination helps almost as like a practice ground.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. I think that in itself will answer. I know a lot of our viewers have been wondering about manifestation and how, that works. And we've had some episodes about it, but I think that you put that really nicely. Thank you for that.
I like that description. That really helps. It's easily able to be understood and relate to. I remembered my question. Oh, what's meant to be will be. So I was going to ask, because you mentioned a couple of different phases in your personal experience, but like, what is your current meditation practice?
Sure. So it varies a bit from day to day now. So it used to be much more stable in terms of types and practice. So my practice is usually that of silence. So if I can, I'll do some physical yoga or asanas for a few minutes, and then I'll sit and I'll see when I sit if I'm ready for silence, and then I'll just go into silence. Or if there's any aspect that wants to speak or anything that needs to be raised within my kind of being, and if there is, I try and listen to it and either address it or say, okay, it's not for now. And then I go in and meditate in silence. And so I just spend, time in silence. And then I have also exit practices. One of them is called samyama, where essentially you use meditation. You basically concentrate on a quality like for 1 microsecond, and then you let it go into silence for like 10-15 seconds. And it's basically a technique that mixes what you would call meditation and what you would call samadhi. And this comes from the advanced yoga practices, and it's very, very beautiful. It's a bit like a little bit like a more advanced level for the manifestation. You in order to do it, you need to be able to like usually comfortably be in silence for 10-15 seconds, and or something a little bit like that. And because in meditation that comes from yoga, the state of meditation is considered like after the mind has concentrated fully. So their meditation is not just like I'm aware of my mind, of what it's doing. The mind has to be focused through a single point and then come out the other side quiet. Like there's a flowing into a point and then an expansion out. So that expansion out is samadhi, which is the 8th point of yoga. And the previous one is meditation and concentration. So in the exit of meditation, you can do that where you very quickly enter in meditation with a quality and then you let go. And it's a very beautiful practice because, for example, differently from when you're meditating on your visualization and you're putting your own will, over here you surrender completely. You go for a quality, love, and then you let go. And you don't think of what love is, you just let it be. Very, very beautiful practice. To anybody who's interested, they can look it up in the advanced yoga practices, AYP, Samyama. So if you have a nice established meditation practice and something to exit meditation in a very beautiful and filling way, that's a good one to have.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
I personally struggled with silent meditation in the beginning. I'm much better about it now. And now that I lead meditation, I have silent parts. I have silent portions, and it doesn't bother me. But I think, man, my old self would have really freaked out right now. But Ryan Ryan with Evolver and Presence Practices, who we've had on before, he does silent meditation every day for like an hour. He offers up, and I tried once, and I was like, I couldn't do it. I could probably do it now. So when you mentioned that you pretty much do silent meditation, I was like, oh, another person that does silent meditation. Because we've had episodes where we've talked about the different types of meditation, and everybody, has their preferred method. But but I wanted to say I'm not very surprised that it was silent, because you're obviously a seasoned practitioner.
Yeah, it's beautiful to meditate in different ways. Silence is, I think my preferred way. It's also very like universal, because we can be very different in our bodies and emotions and mind. Even with aliens, imagine, at one point our civilization will open up. There's billions and trillions of planets and civilizations. So these guys are going to be conscious, but their bodies are going to be different, their emotions are going to be different, their minds are going to be different, their thinking, their capabilities. So what's universal? It's like silence and consciousness. If he meditates in silence and I meditate in silence, it's the same for both. Science is the same even if you're an alien.
Well, that's a really good way to put it. I had never really thought about it like that. And I myself very recently, have gotten to the point that I can do silent meditations. Prior, I started with guided and then could go to just listening to frequencies. And then now I can do silent.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's just the human condition that really interferes. We have so much programming and conditioning. It's like we're almost programmed to think that silence isn't good. It's uncomfortable. We must fill the silence, just fill the space. But I was just telling a few people in VR yesterday that actually what brings me joy is silence and stillness and space, and just that idea of just being. And so it really makes me realize how much I've changed in 2 years. Completely different.
Beautiful.
Very true.
Jillian, do you have any other questions?
I do not. Do you?
I feel like I had, I asked the personal practice. I feel like I had one other, and it's like gone again. Really should have written it down.
Well, I do, and maybe I'll come back to you like it did before. I do want to ask Ignazio, so that our viewers know, and I know Eileen knows, but so I'll know too. Where can people find you and your work if they're interested?
Sure. On my website, humanspiritualevolution.com.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then from there, you can find everything else. That's the easiest.
Okay.
Yeah, there's lots of information on there. Oh, yoga. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
look at that,
meant to be. We actually had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, a school teacher, a middle school teacher, who does some yoga with his students. And I realized when we were speaking with him that we'd never really talked about yoga before that moment that he brought it up. So I don't personally practice yoga. So I don't really know much about it at all. Is there anything as far as yoga that in your experience you think is maybe an easy start for parents or teachers? Our goal is to change things for children, but we're doing that through their role models, their parents, their teachers. And so I wasn't sure if you knew anything about yoga in a sense of that, what would be a good starting point.
For children or for adults or both?
For adults more so, that maybe they could involve their
Sure.
children.
So first of all, I work for a yoga app that is called Down Dog. And I've been working with them for about 3 years now. And I do all the translation into Italian from English and all the voice, like for all the yoga practices. And in the past 3 years, Down Dog has grown to be probably the biggest and best yoga app in the world. So it's been a real honor to work with them. And they're very good and have a very good heart. And they give this for free to all teachers right now and to all staff that works and all medical, in the medical field and students as well. And it is like the most adaptable yoga practice from 10 minutes to 2 hours, all types of styles, all paces, and you can target different parts of the body. So if you want to start yoga, this app is, the next best thing to having, a private teacher really, or even better for some things. And if you have to pay for it, I don't remember, but there's always deals, even 75% off. So that's a beautiful way to start. And for kids, there is a YouTube channel called Cosmic Yoga. I don't know if you've ever come across it.
My daughter.
So that's very, cute. But again, I think, like I was saying before, if you as a parent or you as a person do yoga, then, if it benefits you, people around will be a bit curious and would ask, including children. But again, fun. The more fun, especially even for adults, if it's fun, you can give yourself a challenge. But so that's a good way to start. Otherwise, you obviously can find a local teacher.
Yeah, we have a teacher here who I'm friends with that does sessions for adults and for children, but I did not know anything about that app, and that's actually very intriguing in our current world here, because something that is, not only good but easily accessible to teachers and to parents and children, students, I think that's a big plus.
Yeah, if you, for example, as a teacher, you use your school email, automatically everybody in your school will have access to it for free. They'll still have to download it, but they will. It's like your school will be on their records.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, Jillian, we can do 2 schools in our district. Now we got to get the other 18 schools in our district. That's so neat. That's so neat.
Well, I know what I'll be doing tonight.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Sure.
Awesome.
Now that school has started, I'm not able to come to your sessions in VR, but I do occasionally go on to the Insight Timer app where you have meditation on there. So very grateful for you meeting with us today.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. An honor.
Absolutely. Yeah, this has been really, really nice having you. I know I've learned a lot. I know Eileen has, and our viewers will. And thank you so much for your time. We're so very grateful.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Our episode will be released on Wednesday morning, obviously Wednesday morning our time. You're probably Wednesday afternoon because you're 5 hours ahead of us. But it'll be on our YouTube channel, Mindset Teaching Outside the Box. It'll also be on our podcast. And obviously you're already a member of our Facebook group. But then hopefully everybody else will meet us and Ignazio there.
Sounds great. As always, we are so grateful for all our listeners, and we'll see you next time.